The Ottoman Empire, the indicator, contextualized historical events of the expansion of the Turks and Mongols on Europe and Asia. Objectives: students will be able to explain the political climate that allowed the Turks to expand. Essential questions: why does conflict develop? Guiding questions: how did the Ottoman Empire influence Constantinople? Why was Constantinople important to the Ottoman Empire? So let's recap by where in the world. The Byzantine Empire is located on the eastern side of the Mediterranean Sea. Its geographic locations gave it economic advantages over their neighbors because of their access of trade. Many of the Byzantium Empire's rivals would covet this region because of their access of global trade. Despite its dilapidated conditions in the 14th century, Constantinople's sobriquet was still in use, known as the Golden Apple. Everyone reckoned the Roman capital to be the greatest powerhouse in the world. For the Ottoman ruler Mehmed II, it was the most treasured prize of all. So how did the Ottoman Turks manage to breach the walls of Constantinople? Remember, Constantinople had stood strong for over 1,000 years and fended off many attacks from its walls that lasted nearly as long as the empire. As for one, political decisions that were quite ostentatious as well as pandemics ravaging through the lands caused the empire to fall to its knees. The Ottoman Sultan, Mehmed II, and his armies began their siege on April 2, 1453. Inside the city walls, Emperor Constantine XI was determined to defend the remnants of the Roman Empire, even if it felt ostensibly hopeless. The siege, once it began, lasted for 8 weeks. The city defenders strung a huge metal chain floated on barrels across the entrance of the harbor, the Golden Horn. The defenders hunkered down behind the huge 1,000-year-old walls of their capital and waited. 7,000 defenders were matched against some 80,000 invaders. Fighting off the Muslim invaders, Constantinople didn't receive help from the Christians because of theological disputes that separated the Roman Catholic Church from the Eastern Orthodox Church during the so-called Great Schism of 1054. After relentless attacks by cannon fire, the wall subsequently collapsed. The Ottoman elite forces, the Janissaries, capitalized the breach, forcing the defenders to fall back from the walls. The city was about to be taken. Mehmed's forces successfully sacked the last Roman city and sold the surviving inhabitants into slavery. When the Sultan entered the Hagia Sophia, which was the largest church in Constantinople at the time, he was at awe by the geometric designs and famous mosaics that decorated Hagia Sophia. Instead of demolishing this world wonder, he would add verses of the Quran where earlier holy icons hung, thus turning Constantinople's magna opus into the largest mosque in Europe. Therefore, the victor of the siege would acquire a new appellation, Mehmed the Conqueror. He would also be called the Sultan of Rum, that is to say, the Sultan of Rome, of lands no longer conterminous to the Roman Empire. Communication at the time took much longer compared to how fast news spreads during the Information Age. In the rest of Europe, the news about the fall of Constantinople took some time to spread. Obscure information of war would leave many in disbelief or in fear that a Muslim caliphate would wipe out Christianity for good. The news of the conquest reached the rest of Europe more than a month after it happened. So why did the Ottoman Empire expand so quickly? The Turks believed in a prophecy called Osman's Dream, about a tree which grew until it covered the whole world. This gave them the confidence that they would win a worldwide empire. After 1065, a group of nomadic Turks began to invade and settle in the Byzantine Empire in search of better grazing lands for their animals. From the 1220s onward, pagan Mongols from Central Asia invaded, conquered the Eastern Islamic world, thus destroying agricultural and urban centers, and also slaughtered many inhabitants. This would be the impetus that pushed the Turkish population west, increasing their populations. Despite having plenty of resources, the Ottomans attacked smaller states weakened by the Black Death during the 14th century. The Ottoman armies would use technology such as powerful cannons to overcome their enemies, as well use janissaries, slaves loyal to the Sultan, to conquer many countries around the region. One historian writes that the fall of the Byzantine Empire in 1453 sent a stream of refugees and tremors of fear throughout Christendom, marking the end of the Middle Ages.